Southern California, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Today we have ourselves a packed episode as we have a lot to get into, such as the Rams' disappointing night last night against the Buffalo Bills. What happened against the Bills, and why were they just not fully there? Can they bounce back against the Atlanta Falcons the following week, or is this a sign of concern? And the Chargers kick off their season against the Raiders this upcoming Sunday. Can the Chargers start 1-0 for the third straight year? And can they still remain unbeaten in Week 1 against the Raiders? We'll have to find that out soon. Also, the NWSL gets back underway as Wave FC looks to tighten its grip atop the standings. And Angel City will look to also get back on track and also make their way into the top 6. And the Angels are obviously they're not doing bad, but they're not doing great. You gotta compare to the Dodgers, of course. Their magic number is 7 as they look to try to lock up the NL West. All that and more here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Friday morning. Yes, it is Friday morning. I had to start the show a little bit earlier. It's technically 11 a.m., a little past 11 a.m., so technically you could call it like mid-morning, mid-afternoon, early afternoon. Either way, you have made your way into episode 103 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Without any further delay, let's get on into that SoCal goodness. But first and foremost, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show would not be where it's at without IE Sports Radio, the one that is providing this little platform. You can follow IE Sports Radio on Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok at IE Sports Radio, and on Facebook, even though most people don't really use it, by typing in the word IE, then sports, then radio. Also, we have a Patreon link at our website, www.iesportsradio.com. And like I said, when you go there at the top, you'll see a Patreon link, which starts at $5 a month. This will get you a shout-out from all of our shows, including this one, and higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to IESRU, the podcasting university of IE Sports Radio, and even a chance to be featured on a segment of our flagship show, The Defining Moment, with the one, the only Larry B. Thank you, everyone, for all of your support, for all of our shows, and for IE Sports Radio, and for continuing to make IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. Shout out to our Patreon supporters, Bay Area Raised Apparel, Marcus Los Great, Key to the Gate, and a donor that wishes to remain anonymous. Without any further delay, now let's get on into that Southern California sports goodness as Larry B and Gina G are in the chat room. Larry B says, "Good morning, Teran," and Gina says, "Have a great show as always." I appreciate it. So, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. The Rams, unfortunately. So I didn't really get the chance to see the whole game. I got to see like a couple of like highlights of how the first half was going, and it looked like the Rams and Bills were basically neck and neck. Like the Rams and Bills weren't basically tied 10-10. The Rams got off to a slow start. They're down 10-0, but the Rams started to get together, feel it might have been because it could have been like the whole atmosphere of winning a championship and basically just the moment got to their heads. And then once they started getting it together, they started playing better, but the second half they just looked like a complete shell of themselves, and it's disappointing just because Matt Stafford just was not himself. Maybe he still hasn't fully recovered from his elbow injury. And Gina thinks she's so smart in the chat room. She says, love seeing the Rams get slammed. Oh, someone's still a little bitter from last year after the Rams broke the hearts of many Niners fans from the NFC Championship. But jokes aside, yeah, last night was just not the Rams' night. And I don't know, this is the first time that the Sean McVay era has started 0-1, let alone lost a season opener. So it's unfortunate for the Rams, but this was against the Bills. They had to play practically perfect in order to beat that team. So for the Rams, it's basically just back to the drawing board. Stafford got demolished yesterday in terms of like getting sacked. He got sacked 7 times. It was just unacceptable. And I know the offensive line is beaten up, but it's got to be the next man up mentality. I don't care who is blocking for Matt Stafford. They just have to do their job, and unfortunately they didn't. And then Jalen Ramsey was just not that good, as, well, he allowed a practically an extremely great quarterback rating of over 130, and he let Stephon Diggs cook him. So Jalen Ramsey is not the best corner. Let's get that out of the way. So, yeah, sure it is, Gina. Gina says the Rams beating the Niners was a fluke. Yeah, just like the Bengals making it to the Super Bowl was a fluke. Sure, keep believing that. I love it, Gina. I love the bantering from the Niners. Anyway, so I really thought that the Rams got straight up smashed, but it's a long season, and I don't think they played bad. It's just that the second half they played hideously, and most of Matt Stafford's interceptions were in the red zone, which is not good. You can't have interceptions in the red zone. So, yeah. As we welcome Marcus Losgreat in the chat room, he says, bitter party of 2, and what up, Doe. It's okay, Marcus. Niners have a lot of upside to their team. Sending you a nice little pat on the back for a little love for you. But overall, for the Rams, it's just back to the drawing board. I really think that Marcus said it best. Stafford looked shook. And I totally agree with Marcus. I definitely think Matt Stafford was not himself. He looked like he was in his Detroit days. And it's like, I don't want to say that in a mean way, but it's the truth. It's like, the second half was just so horrendous. Like, they could have played so much better. And I feel the Rams could have gotten a touchdown instead of a field goal, just because I did see that the Rams forced a turnover and they eventually got into Bills territory. But unfortunately, it was just not the case of getting the touchdown. You always want to go for 7 instead of 3. Though I think if they weren't in range to like go for it to get the touchdown, I think taking the points was the correct call. So yeah. And then the second half was just absolute doo-doo, as basically the Rams just didn't score, and they let Stephon Diggs even get a 53-yard tutty from Josh Allen. Like I said, the first half was not bad. Josh Allen had 2 interceptions, and the fact that the Rams forced 4 turnovers is pretty impressive. So I really think that it was more so the Bills being better than the Rams, more so than the Rams just looking so terribly. But the Rams just can't have this game because there's going to be a lot of good teams, and the Rams are indeed playing a first-place schedule. So their next true challenge is going to be against the Cardinals. Though I say that in a little bit of a lighter a lighter tone just because the Cardinals won't have DeAndre Hopkins. But I'm looking a little too far down the road. So the Rams' next game will be on Sunday, September 18th against the Falcons. Well, they should. If they don't win that one, then I have lots of concerns going forward because the next 3 games following that are going to be pretty tough. Maybe not so much for the Cowboys and the Cardinals, but still. They better be winning on Sunday, otherwise I'm going to be mad because that's actually my brother's birthday. And I'm hoping to get my brother something a little good, like a Rams replica ring. I feel that's kind of a good little gift, but oh well. Yeah, Marcus and Gina are basically saying it best. Josh Allen looked prime, and he's looking for that league MVP. I think he can get it this year. If he cleans it up for the most part, I think he can get it quite nicely. I mean, the dude looked practically... He wasn't great starting out, but then he started picking up the pieces, and I just think that the second half was a whole different tale. So I really think Josh Allen is incredible, and I'm glad the Chargers don't have to face him. So I'm getting off topic here, but for the Rams, it's just back to the drawing board. I have them beating the Falcons, but I'm not going to look too far into that game. That game is not for another week, and by the time I have another show, the Rams will not have faced the Falcons. And, yeah, Marcus says, I have to get my bro back on the show. Yeah, I'm hoping so. He actually does arrive, I think, next week. I think this next week he comes on, and we'll see what my schedule looks like and what his schedule looks like. But facts, Marcus, I got to get my brother back on the show. And I wish I could have had his take on the Rams' loss. I'm pretty sure he's not happy. I probably should have checked on him, but it's all good. I don't think one loss is going to really be the end of the Rams, but it's just a little concerning for me. Just a little. Jumping over to the Chargers kick off their season against the Raiders! I'm sorry to all Chris Berman fans if I messed that up, but yeah, the Chargers are playing the Raiders to start their season this upcoming Sunday. So for the Chargers, it's looking like they won't have J.C. Jackson, which is not fun times. I mean, the dude had a procedure on his ankle, and he was slated to miss 2 to 4 weeks. He's already got the 1 week out of the way, and there was a slight possibility he would play. He's not being ruled out, but it's not looking good that the Chargers are going to have J.C. Jackson. So instead of J.C. Jackson, they're going to have Asante Samuel Jr., Michael Davis, and Bryce Callahan, who they signed from the Denver Broncos. And facts, Larry, the Raiders-Chargers is going to be such a great game. Well, he said good game, but I think it's going to be a really great game. And I don't know, I kind of dread this little matchup just because both teams are practically evenly matched. I really think it's going to come down to who has the ball last. I don't think it's going to be like the first go-around when the two teams played in SoFi last season. I really think it's going to be a barn burner, and I think it's going to come down to the final play. Do I think the Chargers have a chance? Absolutely. But it's going to be tough to take down a Derek Carr-led team who has Devontae Adams. I really think that the Chargers are going to have to cross their T's and dot their I's, and the defense is really going to have to play lights out just because the Raiders' offense is high-powered. They have Hunter Renfrow, Devontae Adams, Darren Waller. Their running back core is what I think is going to be scary because they have new young running backs. Unfortunately, I don't know if Josh Jacobs is going to be in the fold, but I wouldn't count out Josh Jacobs. I think Josh Jacobs is solid, and I think the Raiders should bring him back following his rookie contract. It's just my opinion, but I think Josh Jacobs is too valuable to let walk. But I feel the Raiders are trying to go in the direction of being youthful in terms of the running game, but it is what it is. Back to the Chargers. So the Chargers really, other than J.C. Jackson, Donald Parham is was basically a no practice yesterday and the day before. Parham is their tight end, who is probably going to be tight end 2, as Gerald Everett is going to be the tight end 1 after he was signed from the Seattle Seahawks. And that's pretty much that for the injury list. It's just Parham and J.C. Jackson on the injury list. Other than that, Isaiah Spiller actually had 2 full practices, and I think Isaiah Spiller is going to be working wonders in the backfield for the Chargers. But I would not count out Sony Michel getting the reps, and let's not forget Joshua Kelly has his swagger back. But if I see Joshua Kelly fumble one more time, I swear I'm going to go off on him, because I can't stand that dude fumbling. And like I said, if he could fumble his way back to UCLA if he keeps messing up. All I've been hearing is Joshua Kelly has his swagger back, he should be better, blah, 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 blah. I want him to show it to me. I want him to show that he's a good running back, too. If not, Sony Michel is going to take his job, and Joshua Kelly is, like I said, he can go fumble back to UCLA. But this matchup against the Raiders is so tricky. It's really tough to predict this game. Part of me thinks the Raiders are going to win just because no J.C. Jackson, you've got Devontae Adams, and that little connection with Derek Carr. The other half of me thinks the Chargers will still win, but it's going to be very ugly. I think it's going to be a dogfight. The AFC West as a whole is going to be a dogfight, and looking at the Chargers schedule starting off with their first 2 games, that's pretty tough. Raiders, then the Chiefs. Yikes. So, I hate to pick against the Raiders, and Larry, forgive me, but I gotta go with the Chargers on this one. I reluctantly picked the Rams, even though I really think that the Rams, even though I knew the Bills were that good, but I gotta go with the Chargers on this one. It's gonna be a close game. I hate making predictions. I'm not good with making score predictions, but I'm gonna go Chargers 31, Raiders 24. I think it's going to be high scoring, but I just think that I just don't want it. I feel it's just going to be a one-score game regardless of who wins. I would be shocked if either team won by 1 score. It would be shocking, to say the least. These 2 teams practically are kind of neck and neck with one another. Some people have the Chargers pretty high on their list in terms of preseason power rankings. Some people have the Raiders higher than the Chargers. Some people have the Chargers low, but the Raiders a little bit higher than them. I don't know. And by low, I mean like bottom 15. But either way, I have to go with the Chargers. I mean, it's kind of my team, and yeah, I'd probably be eating crow because this is SoCal Supreme Sports Show. And any 50-50 win, I think, is kind of winnable for me. I think for the Chargers, as long as they don't have too many mistakes, I think they will be just fine. But they have to dominate time of possession. They have to play well defensively. I'm going to be interested to see what the run defense looks like. I really think the run defense has to be improved, and without J.C. Jackson, it's going to be quite the uphill climb. But I definitely trust in Asante Samuel Jr. I think now that he's got that full year under his belt, I think he's going to be well known when it comes to the defensive front. I just don't know who he's going to be defending. Same, and Michael Davis, I guess he had off-the-field issues, not off-the-field issues with coaches, but personal off-the-field issues with his personal life. But nothing too big. But I think Michael Davis should still be good. I'm also going to be interested to see how JT Woods is defensively. All eyes for me is basically on the Chargers defense. I really want the Chargers defense to excel this year. I really think that the Chargers defense has a lot of potential, but they have to actually show up, because they can't have Justin Herbert playing hero every single game. They have to have a balanced effort. It can't just be Justin Herbert throwing 50-yard bombs to Jalen Guyton and whatnot. It's got to be a full team effort in order for the Chargers to win, because the Raiders are no joke. I think the Raiders have a lot of upside to them, and I'm really excited to see what they have in store this season. I basically said that the Raiders season last year was no fluke. I thought the Raiders played very inspired in most of their games, and I really think that the Raiders were for the real deal. And the fact that they almost took down the eventual AFC champion speaks to high volumes of how this team definitely has a lot of upside, and this team can be special. It's just that it's all about putting everything into play. And I basically said the Chargers look good on paper. They really do look good on paper, but here's my thing. Can they look good on the field? Super Bowls are not won in the preseason, they're won in February. So Marcus says Gruden set them up, but he'll receive no credit. Well, yes and no. I like John Gruden, but I just hate the whole situation that happened. But I think Gruden, I like his fiery passion. I'm glad he was able to get himself together, just because some of the moves that Gruden made were a little questionable, like hiring a draft analyst as one of I forget who they hired as their draft analyst, but it's as an assistant coach, but I don't know. And then also getting rid of Mike Mayock was also good as well, just because their eventual first rounders kind of went down the toy, aka toilet. But anyway, back to the Chargers. I just want the Chargers to at least be somewhat. I want them to be competitive, and I want them to get over the hump. I want the Chargers to actually get to the playoffs. If the Chargers can't make the playoffs with this loaded roster, I don't know what to say. I think the Chargers could actually be cursed, and that says a lot, just because the Rams are still gaining popularity despite last night's loss. And remember, the Rams also won the Super Bowl last year, so the more that the Rams continue to win and still win over the fans of LA, the more the Chargers are going to not have fans. I mean, I get that the Chargers are still trying to pick up the pieces. I get Justin Herbert is getting them revenue and getting them popularity, but it's all about the other players and the entire team putting everything into motion. Yeah, Marcus says everyone picking the Chargers to go to the playoffs and go deep, and the jinx is in. Well, he's not wrong. I mean, this seems to kind of happen quite a bit. I just hope that this year is entirely different. And thank you, Larry, for saying the Chargers are a Super Bowl team, in my opinion. I hope so, too. I really want them to actually at least make the playoffs. If they make the playoffs, awesome. If they win a playoff game, even more awesome. If they win the AFC West Championship, that's even more awesome. And if they win the Super Bowl, that's awesomer. I know awesomer isn't a word, but I really want the Chargers to actually at least make the playoffs and win a playoff game. I wouldn't even mind if they were a wild card team. I just want them in the playoffs. Just because Justin Herbert deserves a shot at the playoffs. Just because I feel the entire AFC West has a good shot at the playoffs. Just because the Chiefs, even though they lost quite a good amount of pieces like Tyrann Mathieu and Tyreek Hill, I still think they look good, even though they're not the scary super boss that everyone thought of back in the day. Denver is still a work in progress. I want to see if they're actually good with Russell Wilson. And then the Raiders, like I said, they are no joke. I think they are going to look very interesting with their new head coach from the Patriots. And I think it's going to be quite interesting to see where they go this year following their success from last year. So for me, my goal is for the Chargers is I want them to, once again, make the playoffs and then at least get one playoff win. If they just make the playoffs, I'll be satisfied. But I really want them to actually win a playoff game and actually meet the expectations they're supposed to meet this season. So that is going to do it for the NFL portion of the show. I've pretty much touched upon practically everything. And something I kind of forgot about that in terms of topics that we were supposed to discuss is college football. And oh my goodness, I can't wait to get into it. Let's get into it now. So, as we all know, when it comes to USC, they kind of laid the wood on Rice. After a sluggish first quarter, the USC actually started getting it together as they put up 24 points in the second quarter. And yeah, they looked good following that first quarter. And this was no surprise. The USC defeated Rice 66-14. And the best part about USC is they covered. They were 32.5-point favorites, and I'm like, I don't know. USC always seems to do this when it comes to being super heavy favorites, but they don't cover. They look pretty good, if you ask me, even though it's just Rice. But overall, I'm really excited about this USC team. They shut out Rice in the second half, even though it's just Rice. And they basically did everything right. Caleb Williams looked solid. He didn't have an interception. He even led the team in rushing yards, which is kind of concerning. But overall, I think that USC, they look good to start out. But this week is going to be a tougher challenge. They actually get the honor of being on national TV when they play Stanford at the Farm. Now, Stanford is going to be a massive jump from facing Rice. Let's get that out of the way real quick. Rice was nothing compared to Stanford. And like I said, this is going to be on national TV. And USC did move up in the AP poll. They're now number 10, which is super duper nice. For me, I think it's going to be quite interesting to see how USC fares against Stanford. Stanford obviously demolished Colgate 41-10, but that's no true surprise. Like, come on. If anyone thought that Colgate was going to beat Stanford, well, you're either a Colgate fan or you're a sponsor of toothpaste. Or you just hate Stanford entirely, but I digress. One player who I'm super familiar with when it comes to Stanford is John Humphreys. He actually got to play in my neck of the woods, as he actually was a standout for Corona Del Mar High School. I'm not going to get too full in-depth into him, but he leads the team in receiving yards with 88, which I think is going to be really interesting to see. And I don't know who this Tanner McKee guy is, but go for it, young man. Go for it and see what you could do with Stanford. But I really am confident with USC, and I'm glad to see. I forget his name. The overall the number one recruit from 2020 who hailed from Centennial. I'm blanking on his name, but regardless, I'm happy USC just had a great game. They really made everything super uncomfortable for Rice. They had USC recorded 4 interceptions, which was impressive. And I think a couple of them went for touchdowns, which was really cool. Overall, I think USC looks really good on paper, but let's see them actually beat a talented team like Stanford. I knew USC was going to win. I knew they were going to win by at least more than 3 scores, because anything less than a 3-score win would cause me to be concerned. But I'm happy for USC. I really am. I think all of the USC community is basically happy that USC put together a good little like game together. And Corey Foreman was the guy who I'm thinking of. Corey Foreman looked pretty nice, even though he didn't. He actually took the field despite having injury issues in the offseason. But overall, I'm really looking forward to USC Stanford. I really want to see USC come out fired up and ready to go. Beating Stanford at the Farm is not going to be easy, just because I feel that Stanford's little bubble. Sorry. But overall, I think Stanford is going to be a challenge. USC is favored by 8 points. I want to see USC win by at least 2 scores. If they win by 3 scores, cool. If they win by 20 or more, then I think that delivers a statement to the entire Pac-12. So, for me, again, I'm not the best when it comes to making predictions, but I have USC winning. I have them winning, let's say, 35-21. I think that's a respectable score. I think USC gets up early on Stanford, and they don't relinquish the lead. And who knows, maybe we'll see Miller Moss actually play. I think we saw Miller Moss play last week against Ricey Rice, but yeah, he did get to play. He was 6 for 7 for 81 yards, which was nice. And then Caleb Williams was actually 19 for 22 for 249 yards and 2 tutties, which is pretty solid. And like I said, he led the team in rushing yards as well, but I feel they got to get Travis Dye more involved. Like, get him more involved just because he is a transfer from Oregon. It's like you did a lot to try to get him, and he is now on your team after he cooked you, and he cooked other teams while he was at Oregon. So get the running game involved as well. But looking at USC's receiver core, it's just quite nice, and the fact that USC didn't have to do much is kind of amazing as well. Jordan Addison obviously had 2 touchdowns, but this dude right here, Taj Washington, I've never even heard of this guy, and it's like, that's quite interesting. He didn't have any touchdowns, but his numbers do kind of scream impressive, even though it's just 68 yards. So the fact that USC is getting more receivers involved makes me think that USC has depth on their team, and USC can be something special. It's just that they have to basically drown out the outside noise and actually take care of games on the field. This is kind of their statement game, just because last year Stanford pretty much laid the wood all over USC last year, but this time I think USC is going to be ready to go, and I really think that USC can win at the Farm. It's going to be tough, though, but I'm confident in USC. I really think that they can win. Even though I only have them winning by 14, like I said, I have them winning in somewhat convincing fashion. I think they get up, like I said, they're going to get up early, and I don't think they're going to relinquish the lead. It's not going to be like a slow start with them being tied 7-7 and keeping their opponents in the game. I think it's going to be a game where USC leads early and often, and they make sure Stanford is uncomfortable for the most part. So that's going to do it for USC in terms of football. Jumping over to UCLA. UCLA had a little bit of a sluggish start, but they were able to defeat Bowling Green with ease, with the greatest of ease. But UCLA, looking at this game, I was wondering what the heck was happening. UCLA actually trailed to start the first quarter. They were down 10-7. They were actually also down 17-7, and I'm like, oh god, is UCLA going to go full UCLA on us? Well, UCLA eventually righted the ship. They eventually scored 17 unanswered. They led 24-17. I'm like, that's still pretty close for UCLA standards. But much like USC, UCLA shut out their opponent in the second half as UCLA eventually beat Bowling Green 45-17. I thought UCLA was going to win by... the final score doesn't really dictate how close this kind of actually was. It was just the tale of two halves. I think just UCLA starting off a little slow was what kind of hurt them. I just think it was maybe a little bit of rust. I think for UCLA, I'm not trying to say this in a negative way, they're not as deep as USC. Don't get me wrong, I think UCLA is a great team, but I don't know if they're nowhere near on the level that USC is. I know it's early, I know I should be pumping the brakes, but still. I think UCLA has potential, but I don't see them winning the Pac-12 just because they have to take down the talented USC, and that USC team is going to be hungry. They also have to take down the talented Utah team. And even though they lost to Florida, I think Utah is going to be quite the challenge. And Cam Rising is no joke, dude. And then UCLA also has Stanford and Oregon on the schedule. I'll be interested to see how Arizona State theirs against UCLA. And looking at UCLA's schedule, again, this is a laughable start to the season. Obviously, they beat Bowling Green, but their next game is going to be against an FCS school. So keep in mind, remember what I said last week. Notre Dame, USC, and UCLA were the only schools to not schedule FCS opponents. UCLA has broken that mold, and now they are basically out of the conversation. So it's just Notre Dame and USC just chilling in the no FCS club. UCLA plays Alabama State, which is actually 2-0, which they beat Miles 21-13, and they beat Howard 23-13, which is kind of cool. But I'm fairly certain UCLA is going to just bowl over Alabama State. If UCLA can't win by more than 4 scores, I am kind of I have the right to be concerned. I'm not trying to be a D-bag to Alabama State, but it's basically UCLA's game to lose. If UCLA does, like I said, if UCLA does find a way to lose, then UCLA needs to reevaluate their team. Well, then following the Alabama State game, UCLA plays South Alabama, which, surprisingly, UCLA isn't a true unanimous favorite. They're an 89% favorite to win, but it's like, I thought UCLA would be a much more bigger favorite. But it is what it is. Like, UCLA doesn't get a true test until they face Utah. Maybe Colorado or Washington, but I'm going to be interested to see how UCLA does in these first 2 games and how they do going into their first 2 Pac-12 games. I really want to buy into the hype of Colorado and Washington, but I don't know, man. I think UCLA is going to find a way to wallop all over Colorado and Washington. I don't see UCLA beating Utah, and I don't see them beating Oregon, and Stanford could be up in the air, but what can you do? I have UCLA winning 42-10. 42-10. I'm sorry to all the Alabama State fans, but UCLA is going to lay the wood all over y'all. And I don't want to see any more. I really don't want to see any bad starts to the first half, because it would be funny as in a meme sort of way for USC fans, but UCLA, as Larry said, they have no excuse to be 3-0. If they're not 3-0 by the time they play Colorado, like I said, they got to reevaluate their team. But yeah, UCLA has to be 3-0, otherwise the entire season could be a wash for them. So that is that for UCLA. Jumping on over to the non-Pac-12 team from the West Coast, San Diego State. I did not expect them to have such an ugly game against Arizona. Granted, Arizona has drastically improved, but San Diego State got stomped on. Arizona beat them by a score of 38-20. I will give Arizona this. Teran McMillan, a.k.a. T-Mac, he had himself a nice little... He actually caught his first collegiate touchdown, and he's only a freshman. That's just how impressive Teran McMillan is. And I can't wait to see what he has in store for us. Or for Arizona. As for San Diego State, I am disappointed. Can I just also mention that San Diego State debuted in their new stadium, the Snapdragon Stadium, which I think is a pretty catchy name. They debuted in their new stadium, and they wound up getting embarrassed by Arizona. Yeah. But unfortunately for San Diego State, they look terrible. Larry said it best. They started their transfer from Virginia Tech, Braxton Burmeister, and he was hideous. He was outright bad, dude. I get San Diego State doesn't like to throw the ball a whole lot, but it's like he was 5 for 10 for 1 touchdown and an interception, and he had only 51 passing yards. It's like, when is San Diego State going to learn that you have to get your quarterback involved? It's like, what if they actually get a good quarterback and they actually, like, let's say that San Diego State recruits a very good quarterback. Are they just going to not utilize him to his fullest potential? Like, San Diego State had 42 carries. They had more than double the amount of attempts that San Diego State's quarterbacks had in terms of passing. It's like, and they only had 170 rushing yards. Everyone has figured out San Diego State's play style. San Diego State is more run heavy than they are pass heavy. It is unacceptable. Like, it really just is. And the defense just did not do them any favors just because the defense made Arizona look like Alabama. And I know that sounds like a terrible comparison, but this dude, Jaden DeLora, who is only a sophomore, they made him look like Tua Tagovailoa. He had 299 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, but still, it's quite concerning just because San Diego State does have perennially a good defense. I'm just very concerned with San Diego State going forward. I really don't know what to expect from San Diego State after this hideous result. It's like, at least don't lose by that much. You lost by 3 scores, dude, in your new stadium. And Larry B makes a funny joke. At least San Diego State has a nice new stadium. Yep, can't say the same for the Chargers, though. But, yeah, San Diego State looked like dog crap. And I gotta give a shout out to Davidson. He called the Arizona upset. Well, I don't even think it could be called an upset just because Arizona looks so much better than they did last year, and San Diego State is nothing like they were last year. But overall, it's just a bad loss for San Diego State in general. It's not good. It really is not good for San Diego State. And I have my concerns for them now just because they're certainly going to win against Idaho State. If they can't beat Idaho State, they got to forfeit the season. Forfeit the season and just go home. Because that would be probably the worst way to lose. And I know they don't look the same without Rocky Long, but it's like, no. San Diego State looks so much... They're much better than everyone gives them credit for, but I think they're probably just good because they play in probably a wishy-washy conference. I get it, you still have your other good teams in that conference, such as the Boise States, the Fresno States, and the Utah States, even though I need to see how Utah State looks after last season. But I just think that San Diego State looked completely bad. They just looked horrible. So for Idaho State, they're definitely going to win that one. They have to win that one. But the following week, not this week, but next week, they got an even bigger matchup against Utah. If they can't beat Arizona, they're certainly having no shot at beating Utah, especially with that horrible offense that they run. It's like, how do you keep going run heavy? How do you not learn from your mistakes from last season? Everyone knows you are a run heavy team. You need to get your quarterback involved. Why do you think Braxton Burmeister transferred from Virginia Tech to San Diego State? Is it because he wants to be back home? You are not utilizing him to his fullest potential. I'm sick of seeing San Diego State not utilizing their quarterbacks to their fullest potential. And if they continue to do so, they are not going to make me happy. Obviously, they can get away with running the ball 1,000 times against most of their conference teams, but this is just unacceptable. Unacceptable, terrible, and it's just so obvious. Like, it's so bad, dude. Like, when your team is just not making the changes on offense and not, like, trying new things. It's so gut-wrenching. I really just want to puke every time San Diego State runs the ball 3 times and they only get, like, 1-yard gains. There's a reason why I'm not fully invested on San Diego State. There is a huge reason why. And it's not because they lost a lot of players to graduation. It's because they just don't have that same pop that they did last year, and they're just making the same mistake after mistake after mistake, and it's just so frustrating. If you're a San Diego State fan, you're probably having your blood pressure skyrocket. I cannot imagine being an Aztec fan and seeing that hideous performance. I'm just saying, y'all, like, that's just bad, dude. Especially when you're... How hot was it last? I don't know how hot it was in San Diego, but I imagine it was scorching after this entire heat wave this past weekend. But either way, it's just bad, dude. There's no other way to put it. It's just bad. I'm sorry, but it just is. There's no other way to put it for San Diego State. They have to win this week, though. Idaho State, if I'm not mistaken, is an FCS school. If they can't beat Idaho State, I don't know what to say about San Diego State. San Diego State would basically be a lost cause. They have as better of a chance of beating Idaho State than UCLA does when beating Alabama State. And that kind of says a lot. I'm just saying, y'all. And San Diego State better get used to playing at Snapdragon Stadium, because when they play Utah, they're going to have to go all the way up to Salt Lake City to take on the Utes. And I could already tell they're going to get brought back down to earth, and then further down below the earth, then brought back up, then brought back down, then brought back up, then brought back down to the center of the earth. That's just how hideous it's going to be for San Diego State. And their rushing yards leader didn't have that much. Cam Davis, a freshman, had 39 rushing yards on 8 carries. You know San Diego State's offense is super vanilla when a freshman leads the department of rushing. It's just that bad, dude. Like, make your changes, coach. Otherwise, get lost. So that is going to do it for college football talk. I really don't want to beat up this dead horse even more. I just don't want to talk about San Diego State. We should be seeing all of our SoCal FBS teams winning. But if they do, the only one I'm kind of concerned for is USC. But I'm confident USC can probably beat Stanford. Will it be ugly? Probably. Will it be a blowout? Maybe. We'll see what happens going forward. Alright, that's enough little football for this week. Let's jump on over to some MLB as the Dodgers continue to roll the competition as they're getting closer to clinching the NL West. As this week, speaking of the NL West, the Dodgers have a 3-game series against the Padres at Petco Park. The Dodgers just recently beat the Giants in a 3-game series earlier in the week as they lost the first game 7-4, but won the next 2 by scores of 6-3 and 7-3. Last weekend, the Dodgers took 2 out of 3 against the Padres at Dodger Stadium. They lost the first game 7-1, but won the next 2 12-1, and they even won on national television, winning 9-4, which is the last time we're going to see a Southern California baseball team on Sunday Night Football or Sunday Night Baseball. Why did I say Sunday Night Football? Sunday Night Baseball. So this weekend, like I said, the Dodgers are playing the Padres. It's basically the NL West hit parade, as most of their opponents are NL West opponents for the month of September, except for the Cardinals, which is the 23rd all the way to the 25th. But we're not talking about the Cardinals. We're talking about the Dodgers and how they're getting closer and closer to clinching the NL West. From what I was told, the Dodgers' magic number, I think, is like 7, if not less than that. Either way, like I said, the Dodgers are getting really close, and I really want to see the magic number for the Dodgers. And I feel getting wins over the Padres is going to get that magic number down and down. So, either way, I really want the Dodgers to actually I want them to actually flex their muscles on the Padres. Nothing against the Padres. I want to see nothing against the Padres. I like the Padres. It would be great to see the Padres actually make the playoffs, but against the Dodgers, I think they're a little outmatched. So the magic number is indeed 6. So I was one number off. It'll get even lower than 6 if they... I want to say they can clinch at least a share of the NL West. Or no, I want to say they'll get the NL West outright if they sweep the Padres. Just because a win for the Dodgers gets the number down, and then a loss for the Padres gets the number down, which means if the Dodgers beat the Padres 3 times, I imagine that magic number will eventually go to 0. I'm really excited to see what the Dodgers can bring to the table. I just want them to actually show up in the playoffs, because sometimes they have this canny ability to not show up come playoff time, and it really stings, but it is all good. I'm confident in the Dodgers going forward, and I really hope that they can make a deep run come playoff time. So as for the Padres, obviously they're trying to clinch the wild card just because the NL West is completely out of the question unless the Dodgers stop playing baseball. The good news is for the Padres is that they're actually in the second wild card spot. They are half a game ahead of the Phillies, and they're 3 games ahead of the Brewers, which is quite nice. And if the Padres were able to, if they were able to get that second wild card spot, they would have a home wild card game against the Phillies, and if they were to win that, they would face the second seed, or no, they would face the Dodgers in the divisional round. So, yeah, that would be quite scary for the Padres. So, my hope for the Padres is that they either get the last wild card spot or no, I'm looking at this wrong. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. See, I'm just going to say this right now. I hate how the MLB has to change its rules again after again. Last year there was only 2 wild card spots. Now it's 3, and now it's basically 6 teams are in the playoffs. And then the first 2 seeds get a first round bye. And then the 3 seed is basically the worst team of the division winners. And then the 6th seed is basically the worst team of the NL wildcard teams, which would be the Phillies as of right now. And the Phillies would play probably the Mets, I want to say. The Mets or whoever the heck is leading the Cardinals. The Phillies would play the Cardinals, and then the Braves would play the Padres, obviously. And then basically, the winner of the Braves-Padres would face the Dodgers, because 4 versus 5 would face the 1 seed, and then 3 versus 6, the winner of that would face the Mets, which are currently leading the NL East. So now that that's out of the way, and now that I've gotten that crazy, stupid rule of how the MLB likes to shuffle rules around, let's look at the Padres and who they have following the Dodgers in their series. But first, the Padres took 2 out of 3 against the Diamondbacks this past week. They lost the first game 5-0, but won the second and third game 6-5 in close fashion. And then they also won 6-3, which was quite nice, as Yu Darvish collected the win, and it was good. It was good for the Padres in that third game, though they kind of needed to wiggle their way out of the 4th inning after it was tied 3-3. I already discussed who they lost to last week, as the Padres lost 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers. So following the Dodgers series, they play 2 games against the Seattle Mariners. They have a 4-game series against the Arizona Diamondbacks. They have a 3-game series against the Cardinals, and then it goes Rockies, then Padres again, and then they have the White Sox, which is interesting, to say the least. And then they close out the season against the Giants. Yeah, the Padres, it's basically the Padres' wildcard spot to lose. If the Padres can't make the playoffs, then all of San Diego sports are cursed. And that includes University of San Diego. But overall, the Padres can make the playoffs. It's just that they have to basically close out their games, and they have to beat up on the teams they're supposed to beat up on. Even though the Diamondbacks are still alive for a wild card spot, they're not going to catch up to the Brewers and Phillies or Padres, are they? They're 9.5 games back of the final wild card spot. So, for the Diamondbacks, we could rule them out. Basically, your wild card contenders are the Braves, Padres, Phillies, and Brewers. Other than that, if your name was not called, you're not a wild card contender. And that includes you, San Francisco. Sorry. So that's that for the Padres. And I'm happy the Padres are still doing good despite no Fernando Tatis Jr. Remember, no Fernando Tatis Jr. the rest of the season. They'll have to utilize Juan Soto and Manny Machado and all their other players in terms of their bats. Jumping over to the Angels, and yes, I'm sorry, Gina, I had to make note of the Giants. To the Angels. It could be worse, though. You could be the Angels, which they did win 2 out of 3 against the Tigers, but they lost 5-4 yesterday to Detroit, which was no bueno. They also lost 2 out of 3 against the Houston Astros last weekend, losing 4-2. They did beat the Astros at Angel Stadium 2-1, but then they lost the rubber match 9-1. And then against the Tigers, the Angels shut out the Tigers 10-0. They beat the Tigers in dramatic fashion on Tuesday, 5-4, which I was quite surprised the Angels were actually able to, actually put together a full good game. But what can you do? They did collapse a 3-0 lead early on, but good for the Angels. They were able to win that game. And then they lost 5-4 on Wednesday. This weekend, the Angels head up to H-Town to take on the Houston Astros, which prepare yourself for a long series if you're an Angels fan, because the Astros are going to rinse, lather, and repeat the Angels into submission. And then the Angels finish up. Well, following the series against the Astros, they have the Cleveland Guardians, the Seattle Mariners, the Texas Rangers, who aren't really going anywhere, the Minnesota Twins, the Oakland A's, who actually were just eliminated. Sorry, Gina. And then they have the Rangers to start off the month of October and close out the month of September. So looking at the Angels' schedule, it looks really tough because they're facing either division contenders or wild card contenders. Either way, it's time for the Angels to play spoiler to some of these teams, especially the Mariners. I really just want the Angels season to end. As an Angels fan, I really don't want to see the season continue. It's like, just end the season. And yes, Gina says A's suck too this year, but for the Angels, it's always this whole thing year after year of Angels look good to start, they go on this long losing streak, they never recover, they miss the playoffs, it's another year wasted of Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. I'm just wondering where the Angels are going to be moving to at this point. At this point, the only exciting thing I have for the Angels, and the only exciting thing I'm hoping for in terms of the Angels, is where they're going to move. I want to see where they're going to move in terms of the MLB. Like, I'm not sure if they'll just be the Anaheim Angels, or if they'll be the Long Beach Angels, or anything of that sort. I just don't think they need to have that Los Angeles fixture in front of them. The Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. That is the worst. I just feel sick talking about it. The Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. That is the worst ring to it. At least the Los Angeles Angels isn't bad, But the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, ugh. Alright, before I gag, that's going to do it for the Angels and the MLB portion of the show. Let's take ourselves a little bit of a commercial break. And then when we come back, we've got some soccer portion to talk about as the NWSL is heating up and the MLS is also heating up. So keep it locked here. You are listening to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, ladies and sinners. Hello, sports fans around the world. Hello, IE Sports family. This is Cale Henderson, the host of IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. If you folks are interested in sports in the Vegas area, if you're wanting to have a blast for 1 hour, every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, this is a show built for the Vegas sports fans, where we feature the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, and the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. Hopefully, fingers crossed, MLB team coming soon. Either way, if you folks are looking to have a blast for 1 hour each and every week, tune in Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you folks are interested in Vegas sports news, go to our Twitter, at SinCities_IESR, and you can speak with me, the host, Cale Henderson, at Cale_Henderson on Twitter. At any time, be happy to reply. Always want to reach out to our fans. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Some say that Indiana is just a flyover state. Flatlands and cornfields, barns and country roads. What if I told you Indiana is the crossroads of America? What if I told you in all other states, basketball is just basketball? In Indiana, basketball is life. Crowded high school basketball gyms on a Friday night, and every barn with a basketball rim and a frayed, worn-out net. If you're interested in the heartbeat of America, and if you're interested in sports, if you have Hoosier running through your veins, the Crossroads Pod with Aaron X is made for you. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Each and every week, the Crossroad Pod covers all of Indiana sports. The pride of the horseshoe of the Indianapolis Colts. The blue-collar gold swagger of the Indiana Pacers. The relentless pursuit of the sixth banner for the Indiana Hoosiers. The swing of the hammer of the Purdue Boilermakers. The swoop of the Cardinals of Ball State. The summoning of the echoes of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. The growl of the Bulldogs of Butler. The intensity of an Indiana fever. The chop of the Indianapolis Indians. At the Crossroads Pod, if it is Indiana, we've got you covered. More than cornfields. More than country back roads. The Crossroads of America. Join me, Aaron X, every week. It's nothing but net.
Back with segment number 2 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows, as the drops were the two drops that were basically played are some of our new shows. Sin City Sports with Cale Henderson. He talks about Las Vegas sports, including Raiders! I'm sorry, I had to do that. And then we also have Aaron X with the Crossroads Pod that talks about all things Indiana sports. Definitely do check out those two shows, as well as all of our shows on IE Sports Radio. Let's jump on into segment number 2, as we've got some NWSL to discuss, as last week we did not have NWSL, which made me sad face, but this week we have NWSL, which makes me happy face. Jokes aside, we have NWSL this week as San Diego Wave FC and Angel City both look to continue their quest to making the playoffs. So for Wave FC, they play Washington this weekend starting tomorrow at 10 a.m. It is going to be at Washington. It is going to be in the nation's capital at Audi Field. So for Washington, looking at them in the standings, they're the second worst team in the NWSL. But that does not mean Wave FC should underestimate them. It's any given week when it comes to any sport. And Wave FC has to make sure they don't slip up on the road, just because one loss could cost them dearly. And Houston is right on their coattails. Houston and Kansas City. Kansas City is probably the hottest team in the NWSL so far, as they face a Gotham team that has not been able to win anything. And the Kansas City Current, are basically, they have not lost a game since May, and keep in mind that includes ties as well, but it's quite impressive that the Kansas City Current continue to not lose games. And when you're not losing, it basically means you're doing good. You're doing something good. But as for Wave FC, they are coming off of a win over the Portland Thorns, which saw them win 2-0. And this time, not having VAR didn't cost them. With 4 games remaining for Wave FC, they have to strike while the iron is hot. The good news is for them, they won't have any midweek games. They won't have any Wednesday or Tuesday games. They're basically just Saturday, Sunday. They have 2 Saturday games, a Sunday game, and then a Friday game. The Sunday-Friday game was basically the latter 2 of the schedule. It is going to be against Orlando and North Carolina. Orlando in Orlando, and then North Carolina at Torero Stadium. But both those teams are still hopefuls for the playoffs. And then Angel City is obviously going to be a tough one as well for Wave FC. But it's still doable to see Wave FC run the table the rest of the way going into the playoffs. My fear is that Wave FC runs the table, but they just turn into a statue come playoff time. And that's something I hope that does not happen. But San Diego does control its playoff destiny, just because they just have to win out. If they do so, then they're in good shape. Remember, only the top 6 teams make the playoffs, and my goodness, the race is so tight. Even the 7th place team, being Angel City, has a shot at the playoffs. And Orlando is kind of the hopeful team, and North Carolina is kind of the Hail Mary team. Everyone else that's below North Carolina is kind of out of the running in my eyes. They're not to be counted out, but are they really going to get hot this late of the season? I don't think so. Anyway, so for Wave FC, they play Washington. As long as they don't play down their competition, they should be good when it comes to winning that matchup. Looking at Washington, it doesn't look like they've won a game since probably July, because the last time the 2 teams met, they lost 2-1, and yeah, it looks like the Washington Spirit have not won a game since June, I want to say. No, even further than June. Looking at their schedule on the ESPN app, they have not won a game since, goodness me, it's been even further. Either way, Washington cannot... If they somehow lose to Washington, if Wave FC loses to Washington, they got to reevaluate their team come playoff time, because it doesn't even look like they've even won a game, which is surprising. Yeah, this is weird. This is totally weird, but it is what it is. Washington only has 1 win on the season. I'm interested to see who they've beaten, but it's probably not even in the NWSL, so I'm just quite baffled at the fact that Washington has 10 draws and they only have 1 win, but they're not in last place. I guess ties truly matter, but it is what it is. Yeah, I really don't want to see Wave FC losing to this Washington team, which has a whopping 10 draws and just 1 win. Yikes. That's tough to be a Washington Spirit fan. I digress, though. Anyway, jumping on over to Angel City FC. Angel City heads down to H-Town to take on the Houston Dash. That's going to be a uphill climb right there. And unlike the schedule for Wave FC, Angel City actually has 6 games remaining, as the month of September has them playing midweek games. So take, for example, they play Houston on Sunday, and then they have a game on Wednesday at North Carolina. That's going to be a lot of traveling. They do return home to California next week, but they will be playing San Diego Wave FC at Torero Stadium. And then their last 2 games of September is against Washington and Louisville. And then their last game of the season, as I've basically predicted, is against Chicago. And I feel that's basically going to be the game that truly decides who makes the playoffs and who basically is going to be on the outside looking in. Regardless, Angel City pretty much has to be perfect throughout most of the way. Houston's going to be a tough team to take down. North Carolina is, like I said, they're kind of a long shot to making the playoffs. Wave FC is basically in so long as they don't go on a losing streak. Washington should be definitely winnable. And then Louisville is a Hail Mary at making the playoffs. They're not eliminated, but they're certainly not out of it. So looking on the schedule, Angel City plays 3 teams within the top 6, while half of their teams, in terms of their remaining schedule, is basically outside of the top 6. Does that mean they're going to be 3-3? No, anything can happen in the NWSL. I've seen it, and it's definitely possible that anything can happen in the world of the NWSL. And Angel City has kind of been an anomaly. Ever since losing Kristen Press, they just don't have that identity. But this is their chance to get a good identity, as they're coming off of a 3-1 win over Gotham, but that's no surprise right there. And then Houston, like I said, going to be a tough customer to defeat. Houston has lost. They did lose to San Diego, and then they tied their most recent game against Washington, which I find super surprising. But overall, for Angel City, I think that this is kind of their opportunity to get a statement win. A statement win would be huge for them. But if they don't win, it's not the end of the world. It just means that them making the playoffs will get 10 times tougher, because looking at Chicago's schedule, they play OL Reign tonight, and OL Reign is right ahead of the Red Stars. So basically, one win or loss could possibly cost a team a spot in the playoffs or hurt a team going forward. So that's basically that for the NWSL portion. The season is winding down, as we are getting down to the last couple weeks, and I really can't wait to see what happens. So we'll see what happens when it comes to the rest of the pack going forward. So as for the MLS, LAFC just recently defeated Real Salt Lake on Sunday 2-0. Ever since Real Salt Lake made that one meme of beating LAFC, it hasn't really gone well for them. And boy howdy did LAFC need that win over Real Salt Lake, because losing to San Jose, Austin, and Houston was not good times. But winning that game against Real Salt Lake was not only a statement win, but it gets them closer to clinching a spot in the playoffs, as Austin actually got smashed by Nashville on Saturday 3-0, which I was a little surprised. But Nashville is playing some good soccer. There's a reason why they are in the playoff hunt, and there's a reason why they're number 4 in the Western Conference. They're not too far off from Dallas or Austin. Sorry. Looking ahead to LAFC's schedule, speaking of Dallas, they are playing Dallas on the road tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. that's an interesting matchup just because Dallas is number 3 in the Western Conference, and I think that would be a huge statement win if LAFC were to defeat Dallas. If they're able to win that game, then they're able to do whatever they wish. And I think it's basically going to be quite nice if they win a game of that magnitude. And they're actually in a tie for the Supporters' Shield with the Philadelphia Union. And I imagine the Supporters' Shield is like the best record in the... Yeah, in terms of having the most points in the MLS. It's quite interesting. I forgot that the Supporters' Shield was quite a thing. Here's the thing, though. LAFC has played fewer games than Philadelphia, so LAFC does have one more chance to boost its point total than Philadelphia does. I'm going to be quite interested to see how LAFC does against Dallas, though. The rest of following the Dallas matchup, LAFC plays Minnesota, which is not too far off from Dallas. They're actually 2 points away. And then Houston is now the new worst team in the MLS, as LAFC plays them to close out the month of September. Looking ahead to October, LAFC plays at Portland, and then they play Nashville. Portland is right on the border of making the playoffs. They're actually in the 7th spot, right ahead of the Galaxy, which it'll be perfect segue to go into. But for LAFC, all that matters is making the playoffs. Once they get into the playoffs, and I don't see any reason why they miss the playoffs. Like, they have 60 points. They're 9 points ahead of the second place team. If LAFC finds a way to miss the playoffs with that many points, they might be more cursed than the Chargers are, but I digress. So as for the Galaxy, they tied with Sporting KC 2-2, which is unacceptable. It's like, guys, come on. You need as many wins as possible, and you're tying with one of the worst teams in your conference. Why do you gotta do this, Galaxy? They also tied with Toronto last week 2-2, which they were up 1-0 for the most part of the game. They allowed a goal in the 62nd minute. They allowed a penalty goal in the 81st minute. And if it weren't for Ricard Puig, their heaven-sent guy, it would have been disastrous for them losing to Toronto, just because they wouldn't get a point. So tomorrow, Nashville is the next opponent for the Galaxy, as they do head down to the Music City to take on Nashville. It's going to be tough to take down Nashville, in my opinion. I really think that that's going to be a team that... There's a reason why Nashville is one of the top teams in the MLS, as they have... Well, not top teams in the MLS, but top teams in the Western Conference, as Nashville has won 4 in a row, and I really think that transitioning into the Western Conference does not mean a whole lot for Nashville, but overall, I think the Galaxy are in for an uphill climb. They also have Vancouver in the following week, as that's actually a Wednesday game. And then they've got Colorado and San Jose, and then they close out the season against Real Salt Lake and Houston. So for the Galaxy, they have a tough schedule. There's no better way to dance around that. Nashville is in the top 6, or top 7. Vancouver is out of the top 7. Colorado is out of the top 7, but could try to play spoiler, even though they're 11th in the Western Conference. San Jose is out of the top 7. They only have 2 opponents they traditionally have that are in the top 7 of the Western Conference. All their other opponents are basically not top 7 material. They're not in the top 7. So if the Galaxy can just get past Nashville and they just take care of business, which has kind of been an issue for them, I think that they could make the playoffs. They're 3 games back of Portland, and they don't play Portland again. But if they just continue to register ties, then this could be a problem for the Galaxy going forward. The Timbers just beat Atlanta United 2-1 on Sunday as they play Minnesota tonight. The Galaxy shouldn't really be banking on other teams to help them make the playoffs, but it's kind of going to have to get to that point. So we'll see what happens with the Galaxy going forward. So that is going to do it for the MLS portion of the show. Before we head on out, I actually do need to talk to y'all about the Dum Dum of the Week award. So, unfortunately, there's not going to be a Dum Dum of the Week award this week. However, that does not mean I'm going to rule out the Dum Dum of the Week award for something else. I'm actually going to have a nice little segment on Set Point this upcoming week in regards to something that happened earlier in the week. So, I'm not going to have Dum Dum of the Week this week, but this upcoming week, when I do Set Point, I will have Dum Dum of the Week, and I'm going to enjoy having this little segment. So, that's going to pretty much do it for this week's episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Without any further delay, let's get on out of here, because I got to get me ready for work. You dig? Thank you everyone for tuning in to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I really do appreciate you all tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I definitely appreciate you. Big shout out to the chat room on Spreaker. Shout out to Gina G, Larry B, Marcus Losgreat. I appreciate you all tuning in. It really means a lot. Thank you, Gina, for saying great show. It means a lot. Definitely do check out Gina G and what she does. Her support for this show and the SoCal and for Set Point does not go unnoticed. And happy belated birthday as well, Gina. Just wanted to wish you happy birthday on the air. Anyway, for everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. You all have yourself a great rest of the weekend. Stay cool, everybody, and also stay dry. I hear it's going to rain in Southern California today and maybe tomorrow, maybe Sunday as well. And definitely stay cool just because it's still going to be hot. Yikes. But the heat wave is almost over. The heat wave is nearly done, and once the heat wave is done, we can finally breathe not so hot air. But until then, have a great rest of the weekend. Stay cool. If it's sunny, do keep your sunscreen handy because it is still sunburn season. I will see you all Monday for Set Point. Definitely get tuned into that just because I do probably plan to have my little Dum Dum of the Week award segment right there and then. But have a great weekend, and remember, SoCal is for SoCal. Peace!